All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. Mr. Simpson is again present before the court with his counsel, Mr. Shapiro, Mr. Cochran, Mr. Bailey, Mr. Blazier, people represented by Mr. Goldberg and Mr. Darden. Good morning, counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor.
All right, what does our schedule look like? That's the thing we need to resolve.
Your Honor, yesterday we were told that we were going to get Dr. Weir's report yesterday afternoon or earlier, I think was the way it was phrased. We have still not gotten the report. The draft that was provided to us a week or 2 weeks ago did not contain any numbers and was obviously not their final report. Mr. Neufeld talked to Dr. Weir this morning, who told Dr. Weir told Mr. Neufeld that the report was going to be faxed to us today, that the first section of it is 42 pages, and that there's going to be an addendum, and I'm not sure when we get the addendum. We agreed to the Thursday-Friday schedule, understanding that it was very tight for us to have this given to our experts and have them time to review it. We still want to try and maintain that, but we have to see this 42-page report, and we have to see what this addendum is. So what I would suggest is that I'll be able to advise you later on today whether we think we can still reasonably go forward on Thursday. But that's a real problem for us right now.
All right, Mr. Harmon, good morning. Then I would just ask that you do everything you can to expedite the transfer of the report to the defense.
I think Mr. Clark's talked to Mr. Neufeld since that conversation, but it's not a lot different than Mr. Blazier has told you.
All right, please let me know, because if we're going to be down with the jury for one day, I need to make arrangements to have other activities for them, and et cetera, so I need to know as soon as possible.
I'll let you know as soon as I get word. I'll let you know.
All right. And today's agenda, council, we're going to have Mr. Posner, I believe it is, and then Mr. Sims again.
Yes, sir.
Is that pretty much? And we're going to conclude today at 3 p.m. because of a commitment that the court has granted that one of the jurors has. All right,
Good morning, Your
Mr.
Honor.
Cochran.
Good morning. I'd like to address the Poser testimony, if the court pleases.
Yes, sir.
And in this regard, Mr. Goldberg was very cooperative to make sure before we left last night we had made sure we had all the reports regarding Mr. Sam. Is it Sam Poser? Poser. Regarding Mr. Sam Poser. And I would ask the court, this has been the nature of like a 402 hearing regarding Mr. Poser's testimony. If he's present, I'd ask for him to step out for a minute, if the court pleases.
All right, Mr. Posner, why don't you step outside in the hallway, please? All right, the record should reflect he's withdrawn from the courtroom. Mr. Cochran.
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. As I indicated, that this would be in the nature of a 402 hearing regarding this gentleman's testimony. First of all, the court may want to hear an offer of proof from the people, but it's my understanding from reviewing all the reports, from looking at all the receipts, there is no receipt linking Mr. Simpson as having purchased the shoes that FBI agent Boziak talked about yesterday. This man can only tell us that he waited on Mr. Simpson in very vague terms. In fact, there's one receipt for $38 for some slippers. He has no information. There's no linking up of this. And the fact is that the prejudicial effect of his testimony of bringing somebody else in from Bloomingdale's to talk about Mr. Simpson having shopped at some point but never having purchased these shoes is far outweighed by any probative value. So I think as officers of the court, we have an obligation to bring this to Your Honor's attention as soon as possible. I appreciate that since we weren't totally aware he was going to be called last evening, the court gave us this time overnight to deal with this. So I'm prepared to argue it. Perhaps the court would want to hear from the people, or I can tell you what the summary is regarding their offer of proof. But I don't think that this offer of proof will be sufficient for his testimony. And so when we get into talking about a 352 problem, I think this is it.
All right. Mr. Goldberg.
I'm not sure what the basis for counsel's objection is. He said that this was prejudicial. I can certainly see the prejudicial effect of evidence that a person shops at Bloomingdale's. I'm sure the jury would be far more likely to convict a defendant as soon as they learn that he's previously shopped at Bloomingdale's.
Well, I shop at Bloomingdale's. That's not the test.
But there is no prejudice whatsoever. His testimony is very simply that the defendant shopped there. He purchased shoes there on about 5 occasions. He's a size 12. He does not have a specific recollection of every instance where he sold him shoes. They would not necessarily have records of instances where there were cash transactions or gift certificate transactions, and that they did sell the Lorenzo shoe. And that would be the sum and substance of his testimony. It would take approximately 15 minutes to put on. There's zero prejudice, and it is probative. So I just don't understand the nature of Mr. Cochran's objection. I know that they're very, very concerned and worried about this evidence. They must have asked me about a half a dozen times yesterday about the scope of this man's testimony, and I told them what it was. My representations to them yesterday and on previous days are the same, consistent with what I've told you. I understand the concern that they have, but this is relevant testimony. It clearly is not prejudicial.
May I respond, Your Honor?
Certainly.
We're not worried. We're the same people who sat here for 8 days while Brian Kellberg put the coroner on for 8 days, and we had to sit here, and it led to nothing, just like the evidence of Bodziak and just like this man. You know, they're whistling in the wind. These are the dying grasps of the prosecution. This is not relevant testimony. To put on this man to say that at some time in 1990 or 1991, he saw Mr. Simpson in Bloomingdale's, they can never link it up to those shoes. Those are the facts. And so what I was saying, it wastes all the court's time. It doesn't lead anywhere, and it's analogous to the testimony that we listed from Dr. Lakshmana, that Dr. Goldman made all these mistakes, but he still couldn't tell us the various things. And you saw the contrast. They spent 8 days on direct. Mr. Shapiro spent, what, a half day in cross-examination. And so we're just saying to the court wants to move this case along. This is a good example of that. And the reason why we kept asking counsel, Mr. Goldberg, and I complimented him at the beginning, we asked him, because we couldn't believe he wanted to put this man on, given what he has to say. And so that I think now the court understands it. And we have a summary of his testimony. And listen to this, Your Honor, that during the time Mr. Poser was the manager of the shoe department, he met O.J. Simpson several times. Mr. Poser was asked to read the sales receipt. Mr. Poser stated, just by looking at the sales receipt, he was unable to tell what was purchased. Mr. Poser did not recall having any slippers priced at $38. And he goes on, there's no linkage, Your Honor. So they could bring anybody in here, and that doesn't add anything. And so counsel says, well, if the jury hears he shopped at Bloomingdale's, they're likely to convict him. He hasn't been down on this trial every day, obviously, if he thinks that. I mean, that has nothing to do with this case. The evidence...
Well, I took that to be a facetious comment.
Well, I had to respond to it because I can't be sure, Your Honor, with everything they say. But
That was not particularly helpful.
I didn't think so either. But the point is, Your Honor, and I think you now have the picture. I asked for the offer of proof. You now have it. How does this link up with O.J. Simpson? If they'd ask us, we would stipulate that he has on occasion bought a size 11, size 12, size 13. I mean, there's in that range. He's bought shoes in that range. They went all through yesterday to do that. I mean, that doesn't add anything. Mm-hmm. How many men in America do you think wear size 10 and a half, 11s, 12s, 12 and a halves, 13s? And that's not instructive.
Apparently 10% of the population.
Well, no, I think isn't that just 12s, 10%? So if you add those other sizes, I think it's even larger. So that's the point, Your Honor. And so I'm saying that this is a point where the court has been very, very lenient with the prosecution and allowing them to advance these various theories that don't lead anywhere. And so we're just saying this is an appropriate time to say that this man shouldn't be called because it doesn't add anything to where we are.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. I take this to be a 352 objection
Yes.
rather than actually a request for a 402 because it appears that there's nothing that I can see that would bar his testimony if it's relevant. The fact that he's going to testify that he is the manager or was the manager of the shoe department at Bloomingdale's gives him certain amount of credibility as far as his expertise as to what the practices are at Bloomingdale's. The fact that he has personal acquaintanceship and knowledge of the defendant's shoe purchasing and that he has purchased a size 12 does have probative value. The fact that Bloomingdale's was one of the 40 stores here in the United States that sold this particular shoe, the Lorenzo, is of probative value. And I accept Mr. Goldberg's self-imposed time limit of 15 minutes in getting to this. All right.
I'm not sure you can say, did he say you could say size 12?
Yes.
Yes,
May I just say here?
certainly. right, Mr. Cochran, ready to proceed?
Yes, we are ready to see. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Mind I just address one last matter not relevant to what Mr. Cochran said. Just for the record, I am flying this afternoon to Kansas City for a hearing on the subpoena that you approved for Marcus Allen, and I'll be back tomorrow night. And I just want to make sure there are no hair and trace witnesses contemplated today or tomorrow.
Mr. Darden?
I don't think I'm in a position to say that there won't be some hair and trace.
Today and
Clark
tomorrow.
told me that yesterday.
Today and tomorrow.
Well, there's the problem with Bruce Weir, so I don't know if the schedule is going to somehow get jumbled. I don't expect it will be.
All right, well,
But
if,
who knows?
Mr. Bailey, you're going to be handling the hair and trace for the defense, all right, if he does have business connected to this case in another jurisdiction, so if he's not available, we'll just have to bounce around with some other witnesses.
No.
All right, maybe we'll do some DV. All right.
Thank you.
Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please. All right, and Mr. Goldberg, why don't you retrieve Mr. Posner?
And two other housekeeping issues. Mr. Harmon has said that he would like some time to set up prior to recalling Mr. Sims to the stand if we could take a brief recess.
Oh, I assume we'll have to recycle to a different set of exhibits.
Yeah, and I've discussed two stipulations with Mr. Bailey, one relating to the Reebok shoes being the ones that were the subject of Detective Lang's testimony, and one relating to the crime scene photographs that were referred to by Mr. Bodziak yesterday of shoe prints having been taken on the 13th of June, which he's agreed to. So I'd like to offer those to the close of Mr.
All right.
Poser's testimony.
Thank you.
The only thing that rankles about that is having offered that stipulation or actually received it, I attempted to ask the detective if he knew that those shoes came from Mr. Simpson voluntarily on the 13th, and you sustained an objection.
Well, nobody told me there was going to be a stipulation, counsel. Now that I know.
I put a second forward.
Well, I think actually that testimony did come in hearsay. It's not a matter.
Deputy McNair, thank you.
As to who we will have tomorrow?
May I be excused to get Mr.
Yes,
Poser?
please. I assume that a lot depends on what we're going to do with the other hearing.
Okay, well, I'm concerned.
No, I'm just as interested as you are as to what's coming next.
Okay. I mean, I've been told that Agent Marks is not going to be until next week. I just want to make sure that that hasn't changed.
All right.
That hasn't changed.
Okay.
All right.
The original crime scene gloves. I'd ask that they said if it's going to be open, it'll be open on the record.
Let the record reflect, we've now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And Mr. Goldberg, you may call the people's next witness.
Thank you. If you could call Sam Poser to the stand.
All right, Mr. Poser, come forward, please. Mrs. Robertson.
Sir, can you please raise your right hand? You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in your mouth now pleaded before this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat at the witness stand and state your first and last names for the record.
My name is Samuel Mark Poser,
You have a spelling?
SAMUEL,
Would you pull the microphone closer, please?
SAMUEL, M-A-R-C-P-O-S-E-R.
Thank you. Good morning.
Say,
Good morning, Mr. Poser.
Morning.
What is your occupation, sir?
I'm the associate buyer for men's shoes, Bloomingdale's.
And is that Bloomingdale's in New York?
Yes.
And how long have you been with Bloomingdale's?
Almost 5 years.
When did you start?
August of 1990.
And shortly after you started, let's say around the winter season in 1990, did you see a Mr. Orenthal Simpson come into the store in the New York Bloomingdale's?
Yes.
When you first saw him, did you recognize him
Yes, I did.
as being Mr. Simpson?
Yes, I did.
And do you see him in court today?
Yes, I do.
Can you point him out for us and tell us what he's wearing today?
He's wearing a gray suit and a brown and black tie and a white shirt.
Thank you. Now, sir, when you first saw Mr. Simpson, were you working in the shoe department?
Yes, I was.
And on that particular occasion and thereafter, did you sell shoes to the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And approximately how many occasions in total would you say you sold shoes to him?
4 or 5 times.
Now, of the 4 or 5 times that you sold shoes, are there any occasions that you remember in terms of specifically what you sold?
Only, not particularly to the shoe level, to the individual item.
Okay. Is there any instance where you have some recollection of what you sold?
Yes, there is.
And can you tell us what that instance was?
Yes, he was in this.
Mr. Poser, could you pull the microphone closer to you, please?
Certainly. At one time, he came in, he was about to do a broadcast for a Bills game in Buffalo, and he needed a boot to wear for the Bills game, and I remember assisting in the sale, selling it to him.
Okay. And other than that, do you have any other specific recollections in terms of the types of shoes?
He liked to buy dress casual shoes, not shoes to wear with suits and so on.
Now, even though did you recognize that he had some type of celebrity status when he first started selling to him?
Yes, I did.
Even though he had some type of celebrity status, did you, considering that he had that status, did you somehow memorize the occasions when you sold him shoes and what you sold him?
No.
All right. Now, during the time period that you had sold shoes to Mr. Simpson, was Bloomingdale's one of the 40 stores that sold Bruno Magli Lorenzo shoes?
Yes, we did.
And I'd like to show you what we've marked as People's 375 for identification. And maybe you could take the shoes out of there and tell us if one of those is Lorenzo.
This is Lorenzo, the boot.
He's indicating what has previously been referred to as the size 12 semi or demi boot, Your Honor.
Yes.
And what colors did Bloomingdale's carry those in?
Black, brown, and olive.
Do you remember whether or not you sold those shoes to the defendant?
No, I did not.
You don't have a specific recollection one way or the other?
No.
Now, what price range did those shoes sell in?
I remember them to be under $200.
Okay. And how would you classify that? Is it an athletic shoe, a dress casual shoe? What type of a shoe?
It's a dress casual boot.
Okay. And if a person at Bloomingdale's purchases items at the store with cash, is a record made of what they purchased?
A record of the purchase is made, but not particular to the person who purchased it.
Okay, so there would be no record of a particular individual purchasing a particular item.
Correct.
Now, if a person, does Bloomingdale's also have gift certificates?
Yes, we do.
And did they back in the time frame that you were waiting on Mr. Simpson?
Yes, we did.
And if a person makes a gift certificate purchase, is there a record of specifically what they purchased?
No.
What item they purchased?
No.
Okay. When you sold shoes to the defendant, did you ring up the sales?
No, I did not.
And when was the last time, if you can give us an estimate, that you would have sold shoes to the defendant?
I believe it was early '92. in the wintertime of '92, I believe.
And over this period of time, you say that the shoes were generally dress casual shoes?
Yes,
What size did the defendant take?
size 12.
Thank you, I have nothing further.
Mr. Bailey?
Mr. Poser, how many times have you been questioned about the same subject matter prior to today?
About 5, I guess,
5 times. By whom?
by some detectives
From the LAPD?
from the LAPD, somebody from the FBI, and from the defense.
And has the subject matter always been the Lorenzo Bruno Mali shoe?
No,
Have any other kind of shoes been sought, if you know?
Oral.
not at the beginning, not specifically.
Okay. What kind of records does Bloomingdale's keep when customers who charge on credit cards purchase goods?
We have a journal on the register that shows who sold what to whom, to what credit card, as well as the receipt, a copy of the receipt that the customer signs.
Do you have a salesman's code so that a salesman will get credit?
Yes,
And if you sold shoes to Mr. Simpson, would you assign the code to a salesman rather than yourself?
normally I was working in conjunction with a salesperson, so that salesperson I was working with would get credit for the sale.
Their code would be on the slip, not yours.
Yes, correct.
What other information is recorded?
The date, the amount of each shoe, any discount that may have been taken,
I'm sorry.
the amount of the cost, the retail cost of each shoe, any discount that may have been taken, the tax, the total purchase, what the total purchase is, and the signature of the person in a charge transaction.
Is there a code on the slip that will describe the item purchased?
There's a yes. There are two types of codes. There's a UPC code, which is a
UPC?
Universal Products Code,
Yes.
which was used at that time sometimes, and there was a department, class, vendor, and mark style code that described what the merchandise was as well.
Now, did you, in cooperation with the detectives, search the records of Bloomingdale's looking for any evidence of a sale such as you've been asked about?
Personally, I did no searching.
Have you seen any records that were retrieved as
Yes.
a result of that?
Yes,
Have you examined them?
yes,
And have you found various purchases of shoes,
yes.
none of which were Lorenzo Bruno Mali's, right?
Honestly, I didn't know the numbers off the top of my head.
I know you
So I can't say to the specifics of that.
Have you ever been questioned about a sales slip that showed the code for this particular shoe, or seen one?
No, not that I know of.
Oral.
Over what period of time was this search made, do you know?
I was called about 6 months ago. I got my first call about that. So from there to present, regarding this case.
On one occasion, were you questioned about the sale of the boots to Mr. Simpson in connection with his duties in Buffalo?
I guess when I was first asked, I mentioned that was the one thing that I remembered specifically.
Right, that he had some job in Buffalo and he was purchasing some boots because he'd be working outdoors, right?
Correct.
Have you ever been to Buffalo?
No, but
In
I know it's
wintertime?
cold. Excuse me? No.
You-
No, I have not.
But did you understand that the climatic conditions were expected to be adverse when he bought them?
Yes, I did.
Were you shown a Lorenzo Bruno Mali, black in color, by Detective Pietrantonio of the LAPD?
Yes, I was.
And did he ask you whether or not that was similar in type to what you had sold Mr. Simpson?
Did he ask me that?
Yes.
Yes, he did.
And did you not tell him that it was not?
Sustain, rephrase the question. without the statement, you can ask him whether or not he sold that boot.
Did he ask you whether or not the boot that you had told him about was similar to the shoe he was showing you?
Yes, he did.
Okay. And did you tell him, no, it was not?
I said I did not. I told him that I did not recall selling the Lorenzo boot to Mr. Simpson. I also said that for the use in Buffalo, I probably would not have sold Mr. Simpson the Lorenzo boot for the climatic conditions that were there.
Exactly. It would not do well in slush, snow, and mud, would it?
Correct.
Now, you mentioned the size of Mr. Simpson's shoe. Do you know if he always bought the same size or whether it varied from manufacturer to manufacturer?
As far as I know, he bought the same size. I remembered it to be a 12.
And on how many different occasions did you fit him with new shoes?
About 4 or 5 as he came in.
Okay. Have a minute, please.
You may.
Mr. President, would you examine these tennis shoes, please, and assume that they are shoes belonging to Mr. O.J. Simpson?
People's Exhibit, which?
384, it looks like, from the
All right.
tag, Your Honor.
These are the Reeboks.
These are Reebok, Your Honor.
All right.
Can you tell me what size those shoes are?
They're size 12 U.S.
12 and a half, perhaps.
No, it's a size 12 USA.
And European size?
European size 46 and a half.
Do you see anything about the width?
Not, no.
Okay. Let's leave this.
Mr. Goldberg?
Sir, you were asked whether you were shown some documents from Bloomingdale's constituting records of shoe purchases.
Yes.
Do you recall that? How many were you shown, if you recall?
I believe 3.
And was one of them for women's shoes?
One of them, I didn't recognize the numbers on.
If I approached and showed you 3 documents, might that refresh your
Yes,
recollection?
it would.
All right, Mr. Bowles, you're going to have to keep your voice up.
I'm
Would you
just
pull the
looking
yes, it would. I'm
Excuse
sorry.
me. Excuse me. Would you pull the microphone a little closer to you and speak directly into it?
Sure.
please? Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Proceed.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Sure.
The numbers are 1540, 1509, and 1529 from Discovery. Sir, can you take a look at these and see whether these are the receipts that you saw?
Yes, these are.
And was one of those for women's shoes?
One of them is not for men's shoes. I assume this
Okay.
is the one.
So if you sold shoes to the defendant on 4 or 5 occasions, would that seem to indicate that, at least insofar as the records you've seen, we do not have a record for each of those occasions?
Correct.
Now, if you had sold the defendant, if the defendant had wanted to purchase Bruno Magli shoes from you, the Lorenzo style, would have you sold him size 12 shoes?
Yes.
And he took size 12 in every shoe that you sold?
As I recall, yes.
Okay. And was it your business to know someone's shoe size when you were selling them shoes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
Mr. Bailey? All right, Mr. Poser, thank you very much, sir. You are excused.
Your Honor, this time I wanted two stipulations, if I might.
Yes.
Counsel, will you stipulate that the Reebok tennis shoes that have been marked as People's 384 for identification are the same shoes that were the subject of Detective Lang's testimony that were received on June the 13th of last year?
All right.
Okay. And will you further stipulate that as to the photographs that have been marked as People's 388 through 395, depicting shoe prints that were discussed by Mr. Bodziak yesterday, that those photographs were taken at the Bundy location also on the 13th of June?
That's correct.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we instructed you earlier, a stipulation is an agreement between the attorneys as to the facts of the case, and you would assume the agreed-upon facts to be true for the purpose of this case. All right, people's next witness. Is this Mr. Sims again?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to need to recycle some of the exhibits. I'm going to ask you to step back into the jury room. This take us about 5 or 10 minutes to reset up. All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. All parties are again present. Mr. Harmon, have we gotten set up?
Yes, Your Honor, and I just want to explain the order I'll do things. We're going to go through some new Bronco results, some new SOC results, and some new Bundy results, and we'll take all the boards down. I have 8 autorez. I'm going to show 3 of them on the Elmo and capture 3 of those. And then when we're done with that, I'll have all of them marked in. We've got the big light box back in the hallway.
The monster.
The monster. So I want to put all 8 of them up there and then afford the jury an opportunity to review them, and then we'll be done.
All right, let me ask Mr. Fairlow if you could to just pull this, the Bronco easel back because it blocks the view of juror number 7. So the witness on the witness stand cannot be seen by juror number 7. So once you take it down, let's bring the jurors in, then you can put it back up.
To be frank, I don't understand why we need the monster. I'm more than willing to stipulate that the bands align. You can show them on the Elmo. I don't think that there's any reason to go through that again, particularly since that these are cumulative results on material that we've already been over. So I think that there reaches a point where there's more prejudice here than probative value. in terms of the number of times that you can show the same material again and again to the jury in an effort to make it seem like it's more than it is.
Mr. Harmon?
It may be cumulative in terms of the overwhelming amount of DNA evidence that we've presented. The only accumulation that we've seen is that we had PCR results from 3 of these 4 stains. Now we have an additional PCR result on one of the stains there was no testing on, and now we have an 8-probe match showing Mr. Simpson's blood on the back gate and Mr. Simpson's blood on sock number A. The jury has not seen this before.
That's not my point. My point is simply that it should be enough to show the autorad on the Elmo of material that we've already seen autorads on. I'm not objecting that they can put in more data on the same stains. All I'm saying, it seems to me plainly cumulative to show the same exhibit again and again and have this whole parade of people looking at the autorad again. It seems to me they can show it on the Elmo and put it in evidence.
All right, let's see how it develops.
I'd just like to point out, I'm only going to show 3 on the Elmo. I could show all 8, and then we'd take a lot longer than, I think, putting the big light box up. So
All right, well, we'll probably spend more time arguing about it than looking at it.
we already have, I think.
I think so, too. All right, Mr. Harmon, you assure me you can present all of this in 1 hour, correct?
Yes.
All right, you got an hour. All right, Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please. All right, let the record reflect that we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel, and Mr. Harmon is now representing the people as to this phase. Mr. Harmon, you may call or recall your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. People call Mr. Sims, Gary Sims.
My recollection is that Mr. Sims was excused subject to recall. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Sims, would you resume the witness stand?
If
Excuse
they're
me.
going to be using that, may I walk over?
Yes, you may. All right, good morning, Mr. Sims.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Mr. Sims, sir, you were reminded that you were still under oath. And Mr. Harmon, you may commence with your
Thank you, Your Honor.
reopen direct examination as to this witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Sims, we have a few additional results that were not available the last time you testified.
Yes.
Okay, and just to categorize those results, there are 2 results from the Bronco
Yes.
and 1 result from one of the socks
Yes.
and 1 result from the rear gate at Bundy, 117.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just go in numerical order, starting with the Bronco. Did your laboratory perform PCR testing on LAPD item number 25, which was removed from the driver's side carpet of the Bronco?
Yes, a D1S80 PCR result was performed by Renee Montgomery.
Okay, and what result was obtained from stain number 25 on the driver's side carpet of the Bronco?
The D1S80 type was 24,25.
And is that type consistent with Mr. Simpson?
Yes,
Is it inconsistent with Nicole Brown?
yes,
Is it inconsistent with Ronald Goldman?
yes,
Was testing also performed on LAPD item number 26 from the driver's side floor mat?
yes.
And what sort of test was performed on that sample?
Again, that was a D1S80 test.
And what was the result?
The type was 24,25.
Is that consistent with Mr. Simpson?
Yes,
Is that inconsistent with Mr. Goldman?
yes,
And inconsistent with Nicole Brown?
yes.
Could you step up to the board here, the Bronco exhibit, or result board rather, number 260, and let's start with number 25. I've made some patches here. Did you assign a DOJ DNA number to LAPD item number 25?
Yes, that was assigned DNA number 39.
Okay. May the record reflect, Your Honor, I'm going to put a patch in that blank column reflecting DOJ DNA 39. And now, there's previously been testimony from Colin Yamuchi that he performed DQ alpha testing and produced the result 1.1, 1.2. Okay.
That's my understanding.
Is that type consistent with Mr. Simpson's type as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and may the record reflect, I have another patch that reflects both the DQ alpha and D1S80 results.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. And what I'd like you to do, Mr. Simpson, you've got that black marker. I would like you, in the lower portion of the frequency column, would you please write in the D1S80 only frequency for stain number 25, or your number 39?
In the lower portion of the
Yes, just the lower. Could you put D1S80 and then what the frequency range would be for the type 2425?
Yes.
So the range is from 1 and 29, and what group would the 1 and 29 reflect the frequency of?
That's the Caucasian data.
And then what's the 1 and 48 reflect?
That's the African American data.
And is there another group in between there, somewhere in the frequency range?
Yes, between those would be the Hispanic data.
Okay, what's the frequency in the Hispanic
1 in
population?
36.
Okay, and Your Honor, we've attached a patch. Could we move that down, Mr. Fairtlow, that reflects LAPD 26? May the record reflect, we've just taped it on to the top of People's Exhibit number 260.
Yes.
Mr. Sims, and that's your DOJ DNA number 40, LAPD item 26 from the floor mat driver's side?
Yes,
And the patch reflects the D1S80 type 2425?
yes.
Could you write in the frequency for the D1S80 type for the result that you've obtained, which is consistent with Mr. Simpson?
Okay.
Okay, and it's the same 1 in 29 to 1 in 48,
Yes,
and reflecting the same groups that are reflected in the frequencies for item 25?
yes.
Okay. Could we move on to the SOC photo board and SOC result board? The SOC result board is Exhibit 262, and the SOC photo board is 262A. What sort of testing have you performed on SOC 42 or sock A, which you've designated for stain 42A3. What kind of test have you performed since you were here last?
The tests that were completed, and actually these were begun in February, but the RFLP process takes several weeks because of the low amount of DNA on this particular sample that was applied to our gel. And we tested it for the restriction fragment length polymorphism results as distinguished from the PCR tests that we talked about, such as the PCR tests, again, are the DQ alpha and D1SAD. These are the RFLP tests now that we perform.
Okay, and when you began those tests, did you already know what the PCR results were on the various stains on those socks?
Yes, I did.
Did you also know how much DNA was in those stains?
Yes, I did.
And which stain did you subject to the RFLP process?
That was stain A3.
Okay, could you point out where that stain was located on Exhibit 262A?
A3 is near the top, towards the top portion of the sock designated A. Notice that it's on the same side as the cutout that we did the previous RFLP on, which was A1 stain. So now this is the A3 stain up near the top.
So, and A1 is the stain that you produced RFLP results which showed a consistency with Nicole Brown?
Yes.
Okay. How many different or strike that, what samples did you have during this RFLP run? What other samples did you use during the same run?
Yes. Because I already knew what the PCR tests were, I ran 3 particular samples on that particular RFLP gel. One was the SOC 42A3 stain. The other was Mr. Simpson's reference sample for side-by-side comparison. And then finally, I ran LAPD number 117, which is our DNA number 49, which was collected from the rear gate at the Bundy crime scene.
Why didn't you include Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman in those RFLP tests?
Because they had already been eliminated by the PCR results.
Okay. How many different probes were you able to submit 42A3 to when you conducted the RFLP tests?
I have data on 8 probes.
Okay. Would you strike that? Did those probes match Mr. Simpson's known reference type?
Yes, they did.
All 8 of them?
Yes, they did.
And we'll show them to the jury in a little bit. But would you please describe the frequency estimate for the match from among the RFLP probes that you tested 42A3 against?
Yes. The actual loci that I tested, there were 8 loci. Of these, I used population data from 6 of the loci, specifically D1S7, D2S44, D4S139, D5S110, D10S28, and D17S79. And the results were as follows. The profile detected in this stain occurs in approximately 1 in 57 billion African Americans, 1 in 150 billion Caucasians, and 1 in 100 billion Hispanics, indicating that among randomly chosen individuals, this RFLP profile is a rare event, and again, this is for unrelated individuals.
And this is an estimate that's derived from only 6 of the 8 probes?
Yes.
And why don't you have additional information on the other 2 probes?
For the complete set of data that we routinely use in our laboratory, we don't have population data for the additional probes.
Okay. Your Honor, may the record reflect I'm going to put a patch in the RFLP column showing
Yes.
8 probes. Now, Mr. Sims, you have previously testified about a frequency estimate derived from the DQ alpha and D1S80 data. Is that still a valid estimate, at least as far as those tests are concerned?
Yes.
What I'd like to do is put a blank magnetic cover over the PCR frequency data for 42A3. And if you will, Mr. Sims, as you have in the other stains, would you please describe the more common to the least common and write them in on Exhibit 262?
Okay. For the RFLP data, the range was from 1 in 57 billion to 1 in 150 billion.
Okay. Let's move on to the Bundy rear gate stain. That was run on the same set of RFLP tests that 42A3 was done in. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was on the same gel.
Did you obtain a similar number of RFLP matches as you did with 117 as you did with 42A3?
Yes.
8 probes?
Yes.
Your Honor, may the record reflect I've got an 8-probe patch that I'm going to place in the RFLP column for on Exhibit 259
Yes, thank
for
you.
117. I've got a similar magnetic blank patch that I'm going to place over the PCR data. You previously provided BQ alpha and B1S80 frequency information for the PCR testing that you did on 117. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that data is still valid as it relates to the test that the PCR test that you performed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what frequency estimate did you produce for the 8-probe match on 117 to Mr. Simpson's known reference sample?
These results are the same as what we obtained from the SOC, namely 1 in 57 billion African Americans, 1 in 150 billion Caucasians, and 1 in 100 billion Hispanics, again using the 6 loci.
Yeah, could you write the frequency estimate in on that blank magnetic patch that's on Exhibit 259?
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Sims, Mr. Farrell, could I get the boards down? I'd like to have marked as Peoples 400 for identification, a set of 8 autorads, and I'll describe I've got them in a certain order here. They're labeled A30. May that be 400A, A31B, A32C, A36D, A29E, A33F, A34G, and A35H. Your Honor. At this point, I'd like to put on the Elmo Autorad A30, which we've just had marked as 400A for identification. Mr. Sims, I'm going to ask you to come down here and use our point maker. Just generally speaking, though, before I ask you to show the jury how you have these things aligned, when did you actually begin the RFLP process on this set of stains that included SOC A3 and 117 and Mr. Simpson's reference sample?
That was in February.
And when did you actually have tests continued even beyond when you left Berkeley?
Yes, we at this point have the 8 probes. We have one additional that has not been sized, but it came off just recently over the weekend, and there's another one ongoing now.
Okay, and about how much DNA did you use, for example, with SOC stain A3 or your 42A3?
It was approximately 100 nanograms.
And then how about with respect to 117, the rear gate stain, about how much DNA did you use?
As I recall, that was a little less. It was about 88 nanograms was the
Okay.
estimate.
Why don't we give you the point maker here and if you would, just help us get oriented on from left to right, just so the jury can appreciate what they're looking at.
Okay. The, do I need to? There. I'll go through this briefly because I remember we went through this last time. These are the ladders, what we call the ladders, or the molecular size standards, where you see several bands in particular lanes. So that would be here in lane 1, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Then as far as the sample lanes, we have in lane 2, this is that K562 sample. This is the national standard that's run on as a control on every one of our RFLP autorads. This third lane has our quality control sample. Again, this is the one that's unknown to me at the time of the analysis, and I go ahead and do my sizing and submit the data to see whether or not I got the correct answer on that particular sample. Then skipping over here to lane 5, this is the lane in which we have the sock stain designated A3, then another ladder. Then we skip over here to Mr. Simpson, the defendant's reference sample, his known blood sample in this lane, another ladder, and then in this next to the last lane, we have the blood stain number 117 from the rear gate. And then we finally finish it off with another ladder sample.
Okay, why don't we just mark the three samples, Mr. Simpson's sample, the sock sample, and the rear gate sample, and this is the only one we'll do it on, just so we can capture exactly what you've described. Could you use some color?
Would you like me to mark the bands? Or
Yeah, the bands.
Okay.
Okay, you're marking the sock with some pink.
Yes, the sock is marked with pink. The defendant's reference sample bands I will mark with the green.
Okay, and then what color for 117?
I'll use blue for that.
Okay, can we capture that? May that be 400A1, Your Honor?
481.
Okay, and why don't we place 400B on the Elmo, Your Honor?
Clear the house.
Okay, Mr. Sims, I'm just going to ask you to point out where the bands, do you want me to hold that for you? Just put that down. Just show the jury where the bands are that match among the three samples, Mr. Simpson's sample, the rear gate, 117, and sock A3. I'm not going to ask you to mark them and capture them.
Just to point them
Just
out?
to point them out.
Okay. On the sock A3, there's a band here, a band here. On the defendant's reference sample, again, a band up here, a band here. And on number 117, again, a high molecular weight band there, and then the lower molecular weight band is down here.
Okay, and I'd like to place 400C on the Elmo. Could you please point out where the bands that match among those three samples are?
Okay. For the sock A3, the high molecular weight band is here, then a lower band is in this position. For the defendant's reference sample, again, a band up here, and then a lower band again in that position. And then for number 117, the rear gate, the high molecular weight band is here, and the lower band is in that position again.
Okay. Your Honor, at this point, I'd like to bring in the light box and put all 8 autorads up there as well as 400A1, if that's okay.
Proceed.
Thank you.
Be careful if you recollect the box blew out our electricity the last time. And Mr. Harmon, do you have much more after that?
No. Just a couple of questions and I'm done.
All right.
What I'd like to do is put 400A1 up there along with the other auto red, the 8 auto reds. Mr. Sims, would you, in the order I've got these, would you place the 8 auto reds up here? And as well as 400A1? Okay, Your Honor, they're all in place now.
All right. Do you want to present these to the jury?
Yes, I'd like to give
As
the jury a
previously.
chance.
All right, let's start with juror number 7 today. fact that all the jurors have had the opportunity and have taken the opportunity to review the 8 auto rads, People's 400.
Just a couple more questions. Mr. Sims, now, why did you only do RFLP on 117?
Excuse me, Mr. Harmon, do you want to step on the other side of the monster there?
Sure.
And
Mr.
can we turn the light off, please?
Mr. Sims, you actually had 3 stains from the rear gate that you did testing on 115, 116, and 117, is that right?
That's correct.
And why did you only do RFLP on 117 from among those 3 stains?
From among those 3 stains, the yields were lower on 115 and 116 such that it might be difficult to get any RFLP at all out of those 2.
Okay. Just a couple other questions. On some of these, just to go back, because it's been a long time since the jury heard the description of the RFLP process, in some of these autorads, there's something that looks like the San Andreas Fault that goes across it.
Yes, there is.
What is that?
There was a tear in part of that membrane on the side extending into the middle, around the middle of the actual membrane that occurred during the batch probing process.
And the membrane is this fabric,
It's a nylon, yes. It's a
and
nylon.
it actually tore when somebody was pulling it off the film?
No, it actually tore during the manipulation process, the handling process, when it goes in and out of liquids or is opened up because it's contained in a plastic wrap.
And what effect does that have on the testimony you just presented here?
It has no effect.
What did you do then?
Well, thanks to the skill of our batch probing team, they were able to it's not torn in half, so they were able to bring the 2 edges right up against each other so that you could still go through the whole probing process. I mean, theoretically, you could cut this thing in pieces and still size it. It just makes life more difficult.
When in the sequence of probings was it that the membrane tore?
It was after the first probing, so it was after the D2 membrane or autorad was obtained.
And is that the only one where you can't see this line that looks like an earthquake fault?
Actually, I don't think you can see it in a lot of them. Some of them you can see it. Most of them you can't, as I recall.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Sims. I have no further questions.
All right. Mr. Scheck, do you need the display machine?
Yeah, just 1 second. I'll be
All right.
After you, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Well, Mr. Sims, good to see you, sir.
Good morning.
First of all, Mr. Harmon, at the beginning of his direct examination, mentioned that there were 3 areas that you were reporting on today, and that is results from the Bronco, results from the SOC, and results from the rear gate at Bundy. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as far as the results in the Bronco is concerned, sample 25 had already been tested by LAPD and was a DQ alpha of 1.1, 1.2. Is that correct?
That's my understanding,
And
yes.
that was consistent with Mr. Simpson,
Yes,
and that was a drop found in the carpet in the Bronco. Is that right?
yes.
And the additional data that you presented to us, I guess, is on number 26, which was also a drop on the floor mat.
Yes, I don't know the exact distribution as far as it being a drop or a smear, but there was some blood on the floor.
Blood on the floor mat. And you did just a D1S80, and this came out 2425.
Yes,
And that's consistent with Mr. Simpson.
yes.
And no indication of an 1818 allele that would indicate a mixture with Nicole Brown Simpson.
There was no indication of that.
Okay. All right. Now let's move to the rear gate, to the SOC, excuse me. And what you told us about is blood that was found, I guess, on the SOC that was up on the calf area near the top of the SOC.
Yes,
All right. And basically what you've reported to us today are some additional probes that you conducted on that sample. Is that correct?
well, this was the first time I had presented any of the RFLP data on this sample.
But actually, I think the last time you were here, just so we don't confuse things, even though you didn't present the data, we had a discussion, did we not, on the fact that you had been able to conduct RFLP testing and you had done some probes on that.
Yes, I recall that.
Okay. Now, So basically what you're here to tell us is that you did more probes there, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, now could we turn to what is Defense 1192B, previously in evidence, a chart? B. The last time that we discussed, now I'm at the rear gate, okay?
Okay.
And the last time that we discussed, last time you were here, we had a discussion of the amount of DNA and the nature of the DNA on the rear gate. You recall that?
Yes.
And as a matter of fact, on your in your testimony for the prosecution, you had presented an analysis of the concentration of the DNA that was found on the 3 samples in the rear gate, 115, 116, and 117. You recall that?
Yes.
And then we went over a comparison of the swatch DNA samples at 115, 116, and 117 based on your data. You recall that?
Yes.
And the basis of this comparison was to take what are known as nanograms, which is sometimes shortened as NG, is that correct?
Yes.
And compare it to the milligrams, and that's a measure of weight.
Yes, it was the nanograms of the DNA recovered to the milligrams of the swatch material that was sampled.
Right, and this was part of what you were doing to try to give us an assessment of concentration. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Could we show the comparison? Because Mr. Harmon did ask you something here about why you didn't do 115, 116 in the amount of DNA. Now, in the comparison of the swatch DNA samples to 115 and 116, you found that there was 2 times as much DNA in those samples as there was to number 6, which was a drop recovered at Rockingham.
That's correct.
Next. 15 times as much as 47, which is the first, which is a drop found at Bundy, correct?
Yes.
Next. 22 times as much DNA as number 48, another Bundy drop.
Yes.
Next. 135 times as much DNA as sample number 49, another Bundy drop.
Yes.
Next. And 25 times as much as number 50, which is another Bundy drop.
Yes.
Is there another one? Okay. Now, this comparison is in terms of the amount of DNA, but wouldn't it be fair to say that certainly as far as 47, 48, 49, and 50 are concerned, that what you're finding there with respect to those blood drops is that there was bacterial degradation of those samples?
Yes, again, we discussed this in detail last time, but that's
Right.
my interpretation as to what most likely happened, is that there was a bacterial degradation of those samples.
Right. And as far as 115 and 116 are concerned, by the use of your yield gel and slot blot analysis, you did not find bacterial degradation in those samples.
I did not detect that same bacterial degradation type pattern that I saw in those other samples.
Thank you. Now, could we look briefly at 1192A? Now, 1192A is the comparison of DNA samples to 117, and that is the backgate sample for which you were able to do RFLP testing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you found 4 times as much, the concentration here to be 4 times as much. Oh, Howard, is that correct? Found in terms of concentration 4 times as much as number 6, a Rockingham drop,
Yes.
27 times as much as 47,
Yes.
45 times as much as 48.
Yes.
Can we have the next one? 270 times as much as 49.
Yes.
Next. 51 times as much as 50.
Yes.
Is there another one? And 11 times as much as number 52.
Yes.
Okay. Now, again, with respect to 117, in terms of your slot blot analysis and your yield gel analysis, you did not find the same evidence of bacterial degradation and contamination that you found on 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52.
Well, again, and I think we talked a little bit about this, but you recall there were only 3 of those 5 that you mentioned that we actually had a yield gel on, where we could see the bacterial degradation pattern.
Right.
So that's correct. We did not see that same pattern that we did see.
Fine. Now, finally, one other measure of whether or not there's bacterial contamination in samples, as reflected in RFLP testing, is your ability to detect DNA bands at the top of the RFLP membranes. Is that correct?
Yes, the bands that are at the top of the membrane, the top portion, those would tend to be the higher, well, they are the higher molecular weight DNA bands, and those are more subject to degradation than the lower bands.
And the reason that they're more subject to degradation is that they are larger,
Yes,
and that the process of bacterial contamination is such that the bacteria begins to eat away, and it's going to get the larger fragments earlier than the smaller fragments.
well, it will chop down the larger fragments, so they tend to get smaller is what happens, and they tend to degrade.
And if you were to have significant or even substantial, I think we use those 2 terms
Yes.
to make a distinction in regard to bacterial degradation. But if you were to have either significant or substantial bacterial degradation, what you would tend to find is that you might either lose bands at the top of an RFLP gel, or they would become faint in comparison to other bands.
Yes,
Now, on these samples, for example, I think it's, you can refer to your notes, D1S7 is a sample where you found on 117 high molecular weight a DNA band at the top of the gel at around 10,028 base pairs.
yes, for the rear gate, 117, it's about 10342, so 10,342 base pairs.
All right, and literally that means that there's 10 of those, well, tell the jury exactly what that means in terms of base pairs, rather than have me describe it.
Yes, well, I think we've had some discussion about base pairs in DNA, and what we're talking about there is the G pairing with the C and the A pairing with the T, and each one of those is a base pair. So this would be 10,300 of those is the size of the fragment. So if you could visualize this, you recall seeing these, the hydrogen bonds bringing the 2 DNA strands together, there would be 10,000 some odd of these units together. And that's the size of this fragment after the restriction enzyme has cut it into the pieces.
And just to illustrate the point, Your Honor, may I remove from the light box and put up for a second on the Elmo, just so everybody can see exactly which order rate I'm referring to.
Yes.
The D1S7 order rad, just for illustrative purposes.
All right, Mr. Scheck, are you going to use the rest of the items on the box, because the glare is...
Just before I do that then, just for purposes of D4S139, would you agree that that is another probing that had bands that appear to be in the upper range?
Yes, that's around 8,800.
All right, and let the record reflect that I'm just pointing for the jury to the particular order rad that has those that Mr. Sims and I were just discussing. And now I'm moving to another one that's entitled D5S110. And again, would that has some bands at the top of the gel.
Yes, those bands are around 11,000.
Right, and as far as the D4S139 and the D5S110, those are pretty good and distinct bands at the top of those gels.
Yes, they are.
And that is consistent with your finding of no significant or substantial bacterial contamination on sample 117.
That's correct.
And I would suppose D17S26, the upper band there is also in the upper regions of the gel?
Somewhat now. We're getting a little more towards what I consider the middle range, but that's about 6,900.
Okay. All right, and could you just, if you do me a favor and come down here and just circle the high molecular weight band on 117. This is on the D1 S7 order red that I think you told us was something, that's the stop. Something on the order of 10,030 base pairs. Is that correct?
Yes,
All right. And is there a lower band in this?
yes.
All right, and those are fainter, actually.
Yes, and that's typically what is seen because there's a lot more copies of where the probe is hitting in the higher band than in the lower band. So when you see a spread like that, where the bands are quite spread out across or from the top and bottom to the gel, that usually the lower band is significantly weaker than the upper band.
But the fact that the upper band, which is more distinct and more intense than the lower band, that's another good indication that we don't have any significant or substantial bacterial contamination with 117.
That's correct.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Harmon?
Mr. Sims, just to take on that last question.
Mr. Harmon, you need to do your questioning on the other side of the monster there.
Were there signs of degradation on any of those rear gate stains?
The yield gel patterns did not show the type of bacterial degradation that I talked about, although you can see from the photograph that the DNA is starting to degrade a little bit. It's not pristine DNA. In other words, it's showing some of this pattern whereby there's a high band and then it's starting to show a little smearing below that.
And time causes that to happen?
Yes, it does.
Environment?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Scheck kept asking you about the significant bacterial degradation with respect to the rear gate, and you said you saw none of that,
That's correct.
but you did see signs of degradation that you know are caused by time.
Yes, and exposure is the way I would put that.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Scheck?
That last question that Mr. Harmon asked you about seeing some smearing or smudging, you can't tell us anything, can you, about how much time would cause that kind of slight smearing, can you?
No, in other words, you typically see that little bit of degradation. It's not unusual to encounter that.
Even on something that's been there for a day?
That's possible, yes.
And in addition, in respect to those questions that Mr. Harmon asked you, the difference between sample 50, for example, which is found on the ground at Bundy within feet of the rear gate, sample 50 had significant bacterial degradation, did it not?
Well, again, let me check that real quick because I want to make sure that that's one of the samples that we did run the yield gel on. If you give me one moment, I'll check
Sure.
that. On DNA 8, which is LAPD number 50, on that particular sample, now we didn't see anything on the yield gel. There was none of this, no pattern, period. In other words, there was no high molecular weight, there was no degradation pattern.
Well, when you say there was nothing on the yield gel, what does that mean in terms of the amount of high molecular weight DNA you have?
Overall,
In other words, we did not see any high molecular weight DNA from the blood stain.
And that's consistent with a sufficient amount of bacterial degradation that so much of the high molecular weight DNA was eaten away by the bacteria that you couldn't even get a reading on the yield gel.
That's certainly possible, yes.
No further questions.
Mr. Harmon? All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sims. Good to see you again.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good to see you again.
All right. Almost as nice as mine. All right. Mr. Harmon, can we get the monster out of here? Mr. Wooden, would you assist him on that, please? All right, the people have their next witness available? All right. Without the reporter. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I have some scheduling matters I need to talk to the lawyers about. I'm going to give you a longer lunch hour than normal today up in the big lounge, rather than keep you down here. Also, if you recollect, one of the jury members needs to attend a graduation this afternoon, so we'll be quitting early today at 3 o'clock. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case, allow anybody to communicate with you, or conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. And as far as the jury is concerned, we'll stand in recess until 1 o'clock. And I'd like to see counsel in chambers in about 5 minutes.
Thank you.